Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to 168 Hours, your weekly roundup of the top local stories. I'm Abdullah Ahil, your host for the evening. Stay tuned. ITB Berlin is known as the largest trade fair of its kind in the tourism industry. The event has become synonymous with tourism marketing, being one of the strongest pillars for Maldives' rise as a world-renowned tourism destination.
Maldives first participated in the trade fair in 1983. Maldives' inaugural representation at ITB Berlin was the result of the tireless efforts of the nation's tourism industry pioneers, Muhammad Umar Manik, more commonly known as M.U. Manik, and Ahmad Mahir Didi. Back then, Maldives was not the well-known tourism destination that it is today. As such, the vision that these two pioneers sketched for the Maldives' tourism industry led to the nation being placed among the global annals of the tourism sector. The result of the courageous initiative undertaken by these private individuals led to the Maldives' government officially making its representation felt at the ITB Berlin in 1984. This is the most consequential step taken to consolidate Maldives as the tourism giant that it is today. One key draw of Maldives' ITB Berlin participation for visitors has always been the unique stands it designs and establishes at the fair. Back in the 1980s, the island archipelago stand was built using natural materials and represented a simple, clean design. The stands represented Maldivians' individuality. The stand was designed by utilizing Maldivian traditional handicraft skill and hand-woven mats, capturing the true Maldivian representation of that time. To add to this, cowrie shells and other materials sourced from the beach was placed intricately to show Maldives' natural beauty with a keen focus on highlighting the pristine, untouched white sandy beaches and turquoise waters. Photos of Maldives were also placed at the stand back then to boost awareness of what Maldives truly represents. For German visitors, the warm sunny climate of Maldives was captured and its desirability as a travel destination during winter. Maldives will go on to become known as the sunny side of life. Maldives' stand at the trade fair has undergone an eye-catching transformation. The stand prepared now encompasses 400 square feet and consists of a double deck. In addition to the photo placements, Maldives has added a light snack repertoire to its marketing arsenal, allowing visitors to experience tastes from the island nation. Visitors can also see a live performance of Maldivian cultural skills such as weaving, and through the use of virtual reality, see firsthand the underwater beauty that truly sets Maldives apart from the rest. Maldives has placed an emphasis on showcasing its natural beauty in its recent renditions of the ITB Berlin stand. In this regard, local furnitures and white sand procured from Maldivian beaches are used to design the stand. In recent years, Maldives has achieved noteworthy success at the ITB Berlin. Among these, Maldives being selected as the official host country partner in 2016 stand alone. This honor has once again been bestowed on Maldives, with an agreement being signed at ITB Berlin for Maldives to host ITB Berlin 2027 next year. This represents a golden opportunity to market Maldives globally. The country has also won numerous Best Exhibit awards for its intricate and unique designs in formulating its stands. ITB Berlin is not just a trade fair, it is a mirror, a reflection into Maldives' historical progress in the industry. What started as the initiative of young Maldivian entrepreneurs in 1983 is today the most well-recognized global tourism brand. This truly represents the honest, humble work undertaken by talented Maldivians in showcasing their country and its natural beauty for the entire world to see.
The Bank of Maldives, or BML, disperses loans to 89 fishermen registered in the National Fishermen's Register.
According to the Ministry of Fisheries and Ocean Resources, the loans have been issued to fishermen since 1st May 2025. Since taking office, the government has worked to formally recognize fishermen, including creating a national register and improving their access to state services and financing. An agreement between BML and the Fisheries Ministry was signed on 28 April last year to provide financing to registered fishermen, with loans being issued starting in May. The ministry said the loans are being distributed through the BML Fisherman Portal, a digital platform that allows registered fishermen to apply for Islamic financing. Fishermen can apply for financing for several purposes, including housing, higher education, vessel purchase or repair, and guest house business investment. Eligible fishermen can obtain up to $19,455 in personal financing without collateral, equity, or a mortgage. The bank offers flexible repayment options that consider the seasonal nature of fishing income. The government says the program is part of efforts to develop and diversify the fisheries sector and strengthen it as a major income-generating industry.
President Dr. Mohammad Muiz says his administration has made women's development a central priority, describing it as the government that has worked the hardest to empower women in the Maldives.
He made the remarks while speaking at an event organized by the People's National Congress (PNC) at Artificial Beach in Malé. Addressing the gathering, the president said the government has prioritized policies and initiatives aimed at advancing the role of women in society, noting that the results of these efforts are already becoming evident. President Muiz highlighted several measures introduced by the administration to strengthen Women's Development Committees (WDCs), describing them as an important platform for advancing women's participation in community development. According to the president, the government has introduced legal changes to improving the functions of WDCs. These reforms include enabling members of Women's Development Committees to receive the Ramadan allowance. He also noted that the position of WDC president has been transformed into a full-time executive role elected by the public in order to strengthen leadership and accountability within the committees. The president further stated that the government has introduced various financial support programs aimed at economically empowering women. These initiatives included loan schemes and other support mechanisms designed to enhance women's participation in economic activities. He added that additional measures to support women's empowerment are planned for implementation throughout the year. President Muiz emphasized that mainstreaming women's empowerment remains a key policy priority of the government.
The amended Drugs Act, introducing tougher penalties, including the death penalty for drug smugglers, comes into effect.
The bill was passed by Parliament on the 3rd of December and ratified by President Dr. Mohammad Muiz on the 6th of February. The amendment imposes stringent penalties for drug importation, trafficking, and unlawful financial gains from drug-related activities. It imposes the death penalties in cases involving more than 350 grams of cannabis, more than 250 grams of dimorphin, and more than 100 grams of other controlled substances. It can also apply to those caught smuggling drugs into the Maldives. However, the application of the death penalty is subject to a unanimous verdict from the Supreme Court bench. Should the court not reach a consensus on capital punishment, offenders will face life imprisonment coupled with a hefty fine. The amended law also restricts the possibility of pardons or commutation for those sentenced to death or life imprisonment for drug smuggling, effectively barring parole for such individuals. The amendment aims to strengthen law enforcement powers and address rising drug use and trafficking. It introduces controls on new drugs, additional offenses and penalties, and improvement to drug treatment and drug court systems. A notable provision within the amended Act mandates the confiscation of property and money seized in connection with drug offenses and transfers this power from the Public Finance Act to the court system. This will result in the forfeiture of assets utilized in or derived from criminal activities, including direct or indirect proceeds of crimes. Courts can order the confiscation of money and property linked to drug offenses, including the proceeds of crime, property used to commit crimes, assets obtained directly or indirectly from drug trafficking. Property can be confiscated even if the accused is not convicted under certain conditions. Customs and police powers has also been strengthened to prevent drug smuggling by air and sea.
President Dr. Mohamed Muiz urges investors to prepare for new economic opportunities in Addo City and Addo Atoll, announcing that the region will be designated a tax-free zone for 3 years beginning in January 2027.
At the People's National Congress campaign event titled The Greater Addo, the president outlined his administration's plan to transform the southern atoll into a hub for small and medium-sized enterprises. He pledged that all legal and administrative groundwork would be completed within the current calendar year. President Muiz stressed that the initiative would provide small and medium-sized enterprises with an unparalleled chance for growth. Calling for readiness across all sectors, he extended a broad invitation to investors. The initiative reflects broader policy objectives first announced during the inaugural session of Parliament earlier this year, when the President committed to designating specific geographical areas for targeted economic relief to foster small business development. At the center of the program is the suspension of direct corporate payments to the state, including land rent and income tax, alongside additional incentives. Seinu Atoll has been selected as the premier zone, with the tax-free jurisdiction encompassing Addo City in addition to Huludu and Midu Addo Atoll. The measures will take effect on 1 January 2027 and remain in force for 3 years. The administration expects the relief to catalyze expansion in the small and medium enterprise sector, generating employment and delivering economic prosperity to both the atoll and the wider Maldivian nation. The president also issued a formal invitation to investors, encouraging them to use the reform to establish Seinu Atoll as the Maldives' leading information technology hub. The regional reforms are part of a wider effort to ease systematic challenges faced by the commercial community. State-owned enterprises have recently cleared $1 billion in errors owed to small businesses, reversing long-standing liquidity constraints. Logistical improvements have been introduced as well. The time frame for clearing air cargo has been extended to 124 hours, while the grace period for storing goods at the port without incurring demurrage fees has been increased to 10 days. Businesses are now permitted to settle both demurrage fees and freight charges locally in Maldivian rupiah. Additional reforms include a 50% reduction in municipal regulatory fees imposed on cafes and the complete exemption of quota fees for businesses employing more than 20 expatriates effective this March. To strengthen commercial resilience, the government has expanded access to international commerce platforms such as PayPal, Alibaba, and Swipe, while securing low-interest financing through the SME Digital Initiative.
President Dr. Mohamed Muiz has accused the former administration of committing high treason, alleging that it unlawfully surrendered part of the nation's sovereign maritime territory to Mauritius without legitimate cause.
Speaking at the Greater Addo campaign rally organized by the ruling People's National Congress, PNC, President Muiz delivered a strong critique of his predecessor's handling of the Chagos maritime dispute. He said the decision to cede Maldivian Ocean territory was a unilateral act taken by the previous administration and was not initiated by Mauritius. The president criticized the decision to abandon arbitration proceedings in favor of referring the case to the International Tribunal for the Law of Sea, ITLOS. He said this decision caused the Maldives to lose a crucial opportunity to appeal the outcome. President Muiz stated that if the matter had proceeded through arbitration, the Maldives would still have had a significant opportunity to legally challenge an unfavorable ruling. However, he said that as the proceedings were nearing a conclusion, the previous administration itself requested the case to be transferred to ITLOS. He also highlighted the financial and territorial consequences of that decision. According to the president, the move was not made at the request of Mauritius. Instead, the previous government submitted the case while retaining legal counsel at a cost of 37 million rupiah, equivalent to $2.4 million. He said the matter ultimately proceeded at ITLOS, where the tribunal's decision resulted in the loss of Maldivian maritime territory. President Muiz said an internal review conducted by newly appointed government legal counsel found no justification for the previous administration's decision to take the case to ITLOS. He added that the concession occurred only after the state had already spent $2.4 million on legal proceedings. He also alleged that the previous government bypassed parliament and relinquished maritime boundaries illegally through a formal letter rather than seeking the required legislative approval. Condemning the process, the president said the action was carried out without parliamentary consultation and in direct violation of the law. He described the decision as an act of high treason and said public funds amounting to 37 million rupiah had effectively been used to facilitate what he called a betrayal of the state. President Muizzu also announced that his administration had formally withdrawn the controversial letter sent by the former government to Mauritius. He said this step was disclosed earlier during his presidential address at the inaugural sitting of Parliament on 5th February. He added that a newly assembled international legal team has been tasked with raising the matter with relevant international regulatory bodies. While acknowledging the significant challenges involved in reversing a finalized international ruling, he expressed confidence that the Maldives would eventually succeed in reclaiming the lost territory. Turning to the broader political situation, President Muizzu dismissed the narratives advanced by the opposition. He argued that after causing what he described as serious damage to the nation's sovereignty, the opposition had lost its credibility. He also urged the public to critically assess the rhetoric being promoted by those he said were responsible for the territorial loss.
The Maldives Transport and Contracting Company, or MTCC, prepares to restart construction on the long-delayed Ali Fushi Airport in Ra Atoll, a project that has been stalled for years but remains central to the aspirations of the island's 3,000 residents.
Work began in 2022 but was interrupted, leaving hopes for local air transport unrealized. Progress is nonetheless visible. The main terminal is partially complete and the fire and rescue building is nearly finished. MTCC officials have confirmed that finishing materials for the airport's primary structures are already secured on site, positioning the company to resume work immediately after the holy month of Ramadan. The development rests on the completion of a major land reclamation effort, adding 50.5 hectares to support aviation and municipal expansion. Under the master plan, 80% of this reclaimed land will be dedicated to airport operations, while 10% has been allocated to housing and commercial activity. Safeguarding the new landmass is a 2,871-meter coastal revetment. The airport itself will include a 1,200-meter runway, a fully equipped apron, a taxiway, and supporting road networks. Facilities will comprise a completed terminal building, a specialized fire station with comprehensive firefighting capabilities, and a 655-meter security fence to ensure operational safety. The project is financed entirely through the state budget, representing a capital investment of $27.64 million. The airport is intended not only to improve connectivity but also to drive wider economic and civic revitalization. During a visit to Ali Fushi in 2024, President Dr. Mohammad Muizzu pledged the creation of an industrial zone alongside the airport, underscoring that it would expand opportunities for residents to earn livelihoods without leaving the island. He also announced plans for a hospital with modern medical facilities, a sport complex, a waste management facility, and expanded banking services.
The government of the Maldives condemns attacks carried out by Iran against several Gulf countries, including Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Kuwait, and Bahrain. At the same time, the Maldives also expresses concern about the broader escalation of violence in the Middle East following military strikes by Israel and the United States against Iran.
In a statement by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Maldives said it was particularly concerned about incidents affecting civilian locations in the Gulf region, including airports and oil facilities. It said such actions represented a violation of international law and the Geneva Convention. The statement added that the government regretted that the attacks on Gulf states were taking place even without any retaliation from these countries. The Maldives also expressed concern about the broader escalation of violence in the Middle East following military strikes by Israel and the United States against Iran. It condemned those strikes, including what it described as attacks on civilian sites, such as the girls' school that reportedly resulted in more than 100 civilian deaths. The government also referred to reported attacks on hospital and oil facilities that it said caused widespread damage. The Maldives warned that the developments were heightening tensions across the Gulf region and undermining prospects for peace. Calling for restraint, the government urged all parties involved in the conflict to agree to an immediate ceasefire. It also appealed to the international community to intensify diplomatic efforts aimed at restoring peace, stability, and security in the region.
According to Abdullah Nazim Ibrahim, the Minister of Health, the government will intensify efforts this year to confront severe staffing shortages across the healthcare system, with particular emphasis on allied health professionals.
Speaking on a PSM News' program, Minister Nazim said the most significant challenge is the persistent difficulty in securing an adequate supply of doctors, nurses, and most critically, allied health specialists. Domestic demand has far outpaced the available supply, in line with directives issued by President Dr. Mohammad Muiz in his presidential address at the inaugural session of Parliament on the 5th of February. The Health Ministry has launched a campaign to recruit 50 therapists, advertising these positions with enhanced compensation packages and supplementary benefits. The administration is also pursuing diplomatic channels to secure foreign medical expertise. Nazim noted that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is engaged in discussions with neighboring countries to source allied health professionals. At the same time, the government is investing in the long-term development of a local workforce. In collaboration with the Ministry of Higher Education, Labour and Skills Development and the Mauritius National University, the Health Ministry will introduce expanded training programs this year. Minister Nazim expressed optimism that these initiatives would provide meaningful relief to systematic personnel shortages. The strategy extends to cultivating new physicians. Efforts are underway to increase the number of doctors practicing in the Maldives by expanding the network of hospitals authorized to host medical interns, thereby broadening practical training opportunities for MBBS students. Expansion of clinical sites, however, depends on strict standards. To widen opportunities for medical graduates, the government has secured international partnerships. Following diplomatic discussions, 5 universities in Bangladesh have agreed to facilitate internship placements for Maldivian students. Recognizing that healthcare is a vital public service dependent on a dedicated workforce, Minister Nazim concluded with a direct appeal to recent graduates, urging them to pursue careers in medicine and allied health.
The Minister of Health, Abdullah Nazim Ibrahim, announces that the newly established State Pharmaceutical and Medical Supply Corporation Limited has formally commenced the importation and distribution of pharmaceutical products, a move designed to rectify systemic supply vulnerabilities across the country.
Speaking during an appearance on Public Service Media's Rajya Miyadu program, Minister Nazim highlighted the critical necessity of a state framework capable of guaranteeing the uninterrupted availability of medicine to every inhabited island. The minister underscored that the decision to incorporate a dedicated entity for pharmaceutical and medical supplies constitutes a pivotal measure in the modernization of the national healthcare infrastructure, resolving historical logistical constraints previously attributed to the absence of a specialized state enterprise. The activation of the corporation's operational mandate represents a primary component of a broader executive initiative to ensure that essential and approved medication remains accessible without impediment. Minister Nazim noted that the Health Ministry continues to monitor the entity's progress with rigor as it begins to fulfill its strategic objectives. President Dr. Mohammad Muiz authorized the creation of the corporation in September 2025 to centralize the bulk procurement of pharmaceuticals, medical consumables, and equipment. By consolidating these disparate functions, the administration aims to codify a resilient mechanism for the continuous provision of medical supplies throughout the country. As a wholly state-owned enterprise, the corporation is now mandated to provide comprehensive medical resources to healthcare facilities across the country, underpinning the long-term stability of the health sector.
Minister of Foreign Affairs Dr. Abdullah Khalil formally declares the government will not permit any foreign nation to utilize its sovereign airspace for the purpose of launching military offensives.
The announcement underscores an administrative-wide mandate to ensure the country is not leveraged as a staging ground for international conflict. To mitigate the potential domestic and geopolitical repercussions of such instability, President Dr. Mohammad Muizu has established a specialized ministerial-level committee tasked with preserving national peace and bolstering the country's economy against external shocks. This protective stance arrives in the wake of mounting allegations suggesting that the country's airspace is actively being utilized to facilitate military strikes against other nations. Minister Khalil forcefully dismissed these accusations, asserting that the government refuses all such operational appeals from foreign powers. The administration's refusal to grant wartime access was recently tested by public scrutiny following reports that a U.S. aircraft had been serviced at Welana International Airport. When questioned during a press briefing earlier this month, President Muizu categorically denied the rumors, confirming the vessel was not a military aircraft. The president explained that the aircraft had secured the necessary administrative clearances prior to its arrival on 17th January, arriving from the Seychelles before subsequently departing for Thailand. Such incidents have accelerated a broader strategic effort to safeguard territorial integrity through the expansion of the military's capacity to monitor and secure both maritime borders and sovereign airspace. Authorities have reiterated a zero-tolerance policy regarding sovereignty, declaring that no party will be granted the opportunity to conduct unlawful activities within the nation's domains.
And that's all we have for this week's 168 Hours. We will bring you any further updates in the next week.